Good morning, guitar players. Welcome to my every Thursday morning Facebook Live event. I do this every week, Thursday morning, 9:45 CDT. I'm so glad you're here with me. Hello, Jack. I think you're out there, and whoever else is out there, ready for a little guitar goodness with me on my Thursday morning Facebook Live event. I'm so glad you're here. A week or so ago, someone had a terrific request for a topic for one of my Facebook Live little nuggets, and today we're going to do that. He asked for some um, performance tips. What are some of the more common mistakes that people make in a live performance? And boy, that's a very rich topic, because turns out when we step on stage, our IQ gets cut in half, our skill gets cut in half, and just we do all sorts of things that turn out not to be the best. And I've made all of these mistakes many times, so I consider myself sort of an expert on the topic. So anyway, I've got something up my sleeve for today that's one of the most common things. Let me just say real quick that if you scroll down after we're done, you'll find a bunch of these little Facebook Live events, 5, 6, 7 minutes of some guitar goodness. And I don't know, a week or two ago, we were doing the blues, which is another one of my favorite topics. I want you to know that if you look in the description, you'll see information about a Zoom class I'm offering next week, Wednesday, June 17th, in the evening, 6:30 to 8 p.m. CDT. Everyone's welcome, all skill levels. There's going to be something in there that's going to be right intended for you, whoever you are, and however much or however little you know about the blues. So check out the description, and there also you'll find a link to my website, to my YouTube channel. There's lots of stuff on there as well. So anyway, what we're going to work on here today is the idea of don't be boring. Now, you might go, okay, well, I already knew that, but how do I avoid being boring? The number one mistake that I see people make is their performance is a flat line dynamically. That means that everything they're doing sounds the same, has the same energy level from the beginning to the end. So what you have is something that sounds like this, and it just doesn't change no matter whether we're in the verse or the chorus. And then about a minute into that, I just lose interest and decide to get up and go get another drink at the bar or check my phone or whatever. So we're trying to avoid being a flat line. And the word that we use for this is to be dynamic. And that means that instead of being a flat line, we want to create some peaks and valleys. And there's a lot of ways to do this. It's another very rich topic. But let's start out by saying, let's change the volume level. Then you might say, well, should I do that in my guitar or should I do that in my vocal? And the answer is yes, as in please do both. In fact, whatever you do vocally, please do the same thing with your guitar. So let's start with the most basic and obvious way to think about this, and that is that we're going to make our verses more quiet and personal and intimate, and then we're going to turn into rock stars in the chorus, okay? This is the single most important and dramatic way to suddenly make anything you do in a performance way more powerful and expressive. So, for example, here's my verse. I'm telling you a story. I'm singing quietly, so I'm playing quietly. And then I get to my verse, and I sing you the title. See how great that was? And here's the end of the chorus. And then my second verse, I'm gonna tell you a little bit more. She said this, and he said that. OMG. And here's my chorus. Yeah, yeah. Don't you just love that? Even though that's probably the stupidest lyric you've ever heard. But it was kind of interesting there. Weren't you kind of like tuned in, wanting to hear more? Because I changed the energy level of what I was doing. So there are a lot of ways to do that. Let's start by understanding that we want to make the verse quiet. And what I just happened to do then, just because it just is a natural, comfortable thing for me to do, is I picked in my verse. If you don't know how to pick, why don't you put a request in the comments here of the video and say, hey, Ellen, why don't you do a little Facebook Live mini lesson on picking? I would love that. But if you don't know how to pick, there are other ways to be quiet. I mean, the most obvious and elementary thing is just do whatever you're doing in the course, but do it quieter. So, for example, see how quietly you can strum, whatever your strumming pattern is. One thing I recommend to my students is pretend there's a baby asleep in the next room. You really want to play your guitar, but you have to do it quietly so you don't wake up the baby. It's hard to be too quiet in the verse. Think of it as being dramatically quiet, okay? And then you get to the chorus, and you can do the exact same thing, but dig in like the rock star that you truly are, and rock out your chorus. And then, because that was so incredibly effective, remember that at the end of the chorus, you come back to your second verse. Get as quiet as possible, because you're going to tell me the next chapter of the story in verse 2. And a little tip about these dynamic shifts is the more abrupt they are, the more dramatic and effective they are. So don't kind of wander into it necessarily, unless that's what you want. Practice being dramatic with your dynamic shifts. Okay? We're going to talk more about that because it's just so effective. If you've never done that before, it will transform the effectiveness and the powerfulness of your live performances. You're going to want to practice this to get in the habit of it. You're going to feel a little maybe bombastic, a little overdone if you've never done it before. Nope. Embrace that. Dig in. Own your instrument, own your vocal, own your performance, and the audience will love it. All right, why don't you come visit me at my YouTube channel, links in the description, or my website. I teach privately, mostly online these days, actually 100% online these days. Wherever you are, I'd love to give you some guitar lessons. Definitely think about signing up for that Zoom class next Wednesday, June 17th, 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. CDT. Everybody has the blues. All skill levels welcome. If you have a guitar, or you can beg, borrow, or steal one, I hope to see you next Wednesday evening at the Zoom class. All right, see you next Thursday as well. Bye-bye.